All right, we're going to get started. Thank you. Thank you for assembling, everybody. Man, we really packed out the chairs that we put out. I'm happy about that. It makes the place seem a lot fuller. Okay, let me present this. Okay, so I'm kind of. Brandon, should we go around introducing new people? Or? Yeah. Okay, so one thing that we're going to do is go around and introduce people that want to be introduced. Obviously, you can just pass the mic if you don't want to say anything, but this is your opportunity to kind of, say who you are and talk about what you're doing. But I would just say try to keep it to like 5 seconds or 10 seconds because, everyone's got to go. So just something real short. 3 seconds. Yeah, 2 seconds. Do I hear 1 second? All right. Anyways.
I'll go first. Hey everyone, I'm Brandon. I work at Storage Labs and I'm a product and engineering manager.
My name is Mike, and I am a blockchain enthusiast.
My name is Joey, and I'm the parent of an altcoin hodler.
My name is Nick. I'm 15, and I am said altcoin hodler.
Hey, I'm Bryce, software developer.
Hey, I'm Peter. I'm an educator.
And I'm Chip, and I heard there was pizza and beer.
I'm Kelly. I'm the local chain link area rep.
I'm Mayo. I'm a media guy. First time here, trying to learn.
Hi, I'm Lauren, and this is Gordon. We're here with Morse Corporate Advisors.
Hi, I'm Fred. I'm a developer.
I'm Jeffrey. I'm a developer.
I'm Scott, and I'm a cybersecurity guy.
Marcus, and I'm just a Bitcoin strategist.
I'm Linda Getz, and I'm with the Blockchain Chamber of Commerce. And yes, there is such a thing.
My name is Brandon Elliott. I'm a crypto enthusiast.
My name is Thomas, and I'm an ex-miner.
My name is Abby, and I'm a nerdy lawyer.
My name is Daniel, and I'm just getting started in learning.
My name is Vamshi. I'm the founder of Bear Tax. We help with crypto taxes.
My name is Michael. I'm a developer and a digital marketer.
My name is Braxton. I'm a technical account manager and a stock trader.
My name is Ben. I'm a database administrator.
I'm Mel. I'm a developer.
My name is Mark, and we do IT services.
My name is Ash. I'm in digital everything, crypto holder as well.
I'm Xiao. I do data during the day and chess off the hours.
Hey, I'm Saurav, and I'm a CPA.
Hey, I'm Race. This is Zara, and we're both recruiters with Elevate Hire Solutions.
Yep, I'm Zara.
Hey, I'm Kamala. I am the director of product at OnSolve. It's an IT company. We send Amber Alerts.
Hi, I'm Jay, and I am a tax and finance advisor.
Yeah, okay. I'm Mark Andre. I run a real investment company. The VIP lounge back there. So just a little bit of information. This meetup group, we're one of the longest running, largest meetup groups for Bitcoin blockchain technology. There are a couple that are a little bit longer lasting than us, but we've had a pretty dang good run now. And we have, out of all the meetups across the world, I think we're number 2 or 3 in terms of amount of events total. So that's kind of says something about Tab for us. So yeah. First thing, the pizza, beer, everything. money to pay in speakers, which today we don't have one. I'm your speaker. All that is due to our sponsors. So I'm going to quickly just shill our sponsors just for a couple seconds. Founders Legal, they're actually in this building. They help with all things legal. Let me know if you need to get in touch, or you can find them on the internet. Hide.me, VPN server, VPN service that accepts crypto for their service, so you can be a little bit more anonymous. You don't have to tie a credit card to your VPN account. I've been using them for many years, and they've been a long-term supporter of Tab, so really happy that they're with us. BitPay, is anyone from BitPay here? Wow, BitPay did not show up today. Okay, BitPay actually did something really cool. Well, I've noticed it recently. They actually accept pretty much Bitcoin from like all major wallets now, including stuff like Samurai Wallet and all that. I mean, at one point in time, it was really, they only accepted from a few different wallets, but I think they went back to accepting Bitcoin from like every mainstream wallet now, which is, yeah, that's okay. I'm just saying that it's usable now. So before you had to use specific wallets, and now you can use just about any wallet that you can think of, and that's really nice that BitPay is doing that, because we're using them now for crypto payments for Tabcom. So Bear Tax, I'm going to hold off on Bear Tax for now, because we're going to have like a little presentation on with Bear Tax, because tax season's coming up. So I thought it would be nice to get Bear Tax in front of us, as they're one of our sponsors as well. Bitcoin Depot, did anyone from Bitcoin Depot show up today? Hey, Juan, hey, welcome. So Bitcoin Depot, if you don't know, they're a sponsor of Tabconf. They're a longtime supporter of the community. They have the most Bitcoin ATMs out of any company. I believe that's a true statement. That is a true statement. They're going for 2,000 Bitcoin ATMs national this year. So if you see a Bitcoin ATM in Atlanta especially, there's a good chance it's Bitcoin Depot's trusted company, I guess. Yeah. Anyways, Gino's Barber, that's where I get my hair cut. So if you want your hair to look like this, you can go to Gino's. And they give you 10%, they give you 10% off when you use cryptocurrency to pay, okay? So those are our sponsors. And of course, Atlanta Tech Village. Skip, thank you so much for helping us. Yes, okay. So one thing that we do when we don't have meetups, so this is a monthly meetup. We meet on Wednesdays. So when we're not meeting here on Wednesdays, the other Wednesdays throughout the month, we have a technical book reading club. And this is, even though that sounds kind of like, ooh, that might be too technical for me, we cater to everyone. And it's a safe space for you to ask questions about really technical concepts, and we like to break things down, and we have a good time with this. So our next one is on March 4th, and we're going over Chapter 7. And you might be like, Chapter 7, I'm already too late. Well, we can recap everything. This is a really fun group, and I would say, who's been to a Monero technical class? Okay, so these things are really fun. You don't have to come to everyone, obviously, if you can't make it, but I would recommend it. I want to come right back to this. So this is also our last Monero meetup. We went over a Diffie-Hellman key exchange, and I used not only the whiteboard, but also food coloring and water to show how the keys are mixed. And you can use a public network to trade, pretty much create a shared secret between you and the person that you want to communicate with. So it's not just heads down. We like to do some activities too. Blockchain Chamber of Commerce with Linda. Where's Linda? 2 seconds or less.
Thank you. I didn't know you were an educator. Seeing that colored water just, did a lot for me. Just wanted to let you know about an event we're doing tomorrow night at the Blockchain Chamber of Commerce. It's just south of Spaghetti Junction. You have beer and pizza here. We have wine and finger foods. Just the real thing that I want to say that's longer than 2 seconds. An OG from the internet creation is going to be there as our guest speaker in person. And he's the one that saw that there would be a commercial use of the internet when it was still being used to transfer data research from a university to another. And he has developed a technology stack that I believe each and every one of you should give yourself the opportunity to hear about and learn about, because the opportunities that are going to be spawned from this are similar to or greater than the opportunities that were spawned from the creation of the internet. So hope to see you guys tomorrow night. The address is up here. Take a screenshot, or you can ask me. I'll give you a card that has it on it. But would love to have you join us tomorrow night. This is one of those opportunities that it's worth having Michael being aggravated at me for taking a little too long. So thanks.
Thank you for making haste. Appreciate it. So there's also another, one more group that I want to shill. This is a group kind of near and dear to my heart because it's the oldest group in Atlanta. This is Bitcoin Atlanta, started by BitPay a long time ago. And when I say long time ago, like 2013. But they had a hiatus somewhere in 2014, 15. So Tab claimed, longest running. So, but I would say Bitcoin Atlanta is definitely another group that I would definitely check out if you really want to just nerd out and eat steak, because they have ribs and steak. They have barbecue. Ribs, barbecue, beer, Bitcoin. It doesn't get much better than that. Just saying. Just to let you know, every once in a while I like to put this up, a free Ross thing. So if you don't know, Ross Ulbricht is someone that is kind of a community effort trying to get enough signatures to have a clemency petition kind of thing, put this in front of the president's face. This is a person who made Bitcoin popular via the Silk Road, and people that are getting in trouble for similar things that he's doing now are getting more or less a slap on the wrist, and he got a double life sentence. So the idea is, he made Bitcoin popular, but before people really knew what it was, and just trying to, hey, it'd be cool if he came here one day. So after he gets out of prison, so that's the hope. So kind of we have to all watch each other's backs to some extent. So if you are interested in that, freeross.org is the website. So TabConf, we changed the dates to September 15th and 16th. Okay, so I do want to shill TabConf for just 1 second because there's a guy named Steven. I don't think he's here right now, but he did make a really, really cool website for us. And it looks beautiful. I mean, I'm just so dumbfounded about how beautiful this website is. We're at the Georgia World Congress Center. Just want to let you know, check out tabconf.com. I'm going to be updating it with more details, but yeah. More to come on TabConf later, but just know it's our annual conference. So I know Steven's not here, but I just want to say kudos so much to the people who help. All right. So if you haven't heard of Telegram, it's yet another messaging app that you have to download because this is just the one that everyone's using at the moment. And this seems to be very, very popular, especially in the Bitcoin, blockchain, crypto space. We have 3 groups. Atlanta Blockchain, that's going to be for this group. And for instance, that's where we posted our link for the live stream. So if you can't make it, you can always just look at the live stream. Tab Dev, that's going to be for the book reading club. And Tab Shill, that's literally for everything else. We have a Twitter, ATL_blockchain. Feel free to follow us. We also posted the live link on Twitter as well. Okay, so if this is your first time, can you raise your hand? Okay, so thank you for coming. We have an after party every time we have this meetup, second floor of Twin Peaks. Okay, so if you want to park there and walk over here, then you can get free parking. So at a certain time, they just let people have free parking, or you can go downstairs and get your parking validated. Otherwise, you'll have to pay for parking here. But if you already know you're going to go there afterwards, then it's worth it just to park there in the first place, or just take MARTA if you're able to do that, because traffic always sucks. All right, so we'll quickly do the tax presentation, and then I'm going to jump to the Bitcoin 101 blockchain stuff after. Okay.
Thanks, Michael. Hello, everyone. I'm Vamshi, founder of BearTax. So I made this presentation to help people who are trading cryptocurrency, or they might be getting airdrops, or they might be just holding them. So to understand what are the basics of how do you account for that, and how do you pay your taxes. So IRS gave the definition of virtual currency. They have been changing frequently with that. So currently they left it with the Bitcoin as the only example there. So they say like it's a virtual currency which you can trade for other virtual currency and stuff like that. They also included like V-Bucks and Robux for the gaming currencies, but later they removed them. But so for now, it's Bitcoin is a virtual currency according to the IRS. So on the tax forms, you might be wondering why your accountant is asking like, do you own cryptocurrency? Because there's a new question on the 1040 Schedule 1 that says like at any time during 2019, did you receive, sell, send, exchange, or acquire cryptocurrency? Because they want to know. They are establishing a legal framework where you said like no and still you have it, they'll be able to catch you. Or if you say yes, you have to declare it. So what is IRS doing on cryptocurrency? So they are not like ignorant, they are not like leaving it out there. So they are updating the guidance and they are keeping themselves updated with like what are the things happening. They know like they are trying to give FAQs on like what's the guidance for the airdrops, hard forks, how to treat them. And since summer of 2019, the FAQs has been updated. So now there are about 43 FAQs for each kind of like transactions. And if you see, they are the biggest customer of the Chainalysis. Chainalysis is a company. It's a blockchain forensic company which analyzes the transactions and provides like, it basically helps IRS to find who are the tax evaders and still like buying and selling Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. So they also send some warning letters and notices, not some, they are in thousands, because they get information from the exchanges who is trading like minimum amount, like trading more than 200 transactions or like $20,000 plus. So they have that information and they sent out warning letters and notices to those who have misreported or underreported cryptocurrency on their taxes. So again, exchange compliance. So exchanges are like they are mandated to provide those information when certain individuals cross thresholds. So how can you be compliant? How can you file your taxes properly and be compliant? So if you own cryptocurrency or trade it, just you have to say yes to the question that's asked, and you have to report your income and gain loss. So whenever you trade, that's a capital gain or loss that you incur. And if you receive payments for your YouTube videos or you are focusing like giving services, providing services, then you are getting paid in Bitcoin.
What happens if you say no?
If you say no, the lighter version is like, they might ask you, why did you say no, even though you have cryptocurrency, like if you do own, that's the lighter version. Then there are people like attorneys, they're always scaring, like always, like they're saying like it could lead to serious penalties up to $250,000. Like if you say no and you get caught having, so Saurav here can. So that's something bad. So better say yes if you have it. So yeah, and the last thing is like keep good records of all the transactions that you make, because you never know what exchange goes down or what exchange gets hacked and they stop providing the records, and someday some exchange says we won't provide services to the US citizens or something. So it's always good to keep records of every transaction that you make on any big exchange or small exchange.
So a point of clarification, just asking. You said say yes if you own, but doesn't the question say if you've bought, sold, traded, or transferred? So if you've done none of those things, do you have to say yes?
If you
it doesn't say if you own, right?
receive, own, buy, send, everything it says, yeah. It's all nuances in the language, so yeah. Yeah, so it's a bit. So what are the taxable events? Like if you go onto the internet, there are people saying like only if you take it to the bank, that's a taxable event. Some says like if you trade with USD, that's a taxable event, and some says everything is a taxable event. So what according to IRS is a taxable event? It's basically when they say whether you trade from cryptocurrency, USD to cryptocurrency, or crypto to USD, like fiat, and then crypto to crypto. All of them are like taxable events. Whenever you convert one currency to other currency, you are selling the first one. So whenever you sell, that's a taxable event. You incur a gain or loss on that particular event. So every trade you make, crypto to fiat or crypto to crypto, it's a taxable event. And what about lending and staking and mining? So they are all kind of income. So again, there are nuances in that. So mining, you are like spending resources and mining Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, so you can put it as income. Staking also, like you are putting your assets as you stake your assets and earn assets on that. So that's another way you are making income. And lending, it has like, it could be just a plain lending like you do with BlockFi, or you also use some kind of DeFi platforms to lend your cryptocurrency and you get like swap tokens. That's a complicated scenario, but yeah. But in all those cases, there could be taxable events, so be careful about like whenever you are doing those, they incur taxes. Sure.
Yeah. What are the entities that lend against crypto? That lend against crypto?
There are several of them, like BlockFi is one of the popular one. They are like Nexo, Celsius, and more. And income, so whenever you receive, like these are the different categories of income. Like you can earn cryptocurrency in various ways. Like you vote for certain coin to be listed, you get rewarded. You participate in a community, you get rewarded. Or you work for a cryptocurrency launch, they might give you tokens. So that's community rewards. And on Coinbase Earn, you can do some tasks and earn cryptocurrency. Or there are other things like staking rewards, gifts, airdrops, hard forks, referrals, mining. In all ways, there is a cryptocurrency that's coming to your wallet without paying. So in such case, it's income. You are getting paid in crypto. So you have to declare your income whenever you receive in crypto. And the next one is capital gains and losses. So the first one is income. You got the crypto, but there is no gain or loss there. You just received it. Capital gains or losses happens whenever you sell crypto. So when you sell crypto to crypto, like you buy Ether with Bitcoin, that's like you sold your Bitcoin and you bought Ether. So you have to pay like taxes for the gains that you made on Bitcoin, or you can claim losses. And the methods IRS suggests is first in, first out, or specific identification. So if you are sure of like what lots you have bought and what lots you have sold, you can match them and put it like on taxes, or you can use the straightforward method of first in, first out. So there are two ways, like short-term gains and long-term gains. Like short-term is like less than 12 months. If you have bought and sold, that's short-term gains that has a higher rate of taxation. And for the long-term gains, there is a lesser rate of taxation. So it's better to hold for long-term. So the next thing is like claiming losses. If you have losses, if you are a poor trader or like average trader like me, you might end up in losses. So in that case, you can claim losses on your taxes. So you can claim up to $3,000 per tax year, and you can carry forward the remaining amount to the next year. And forms needed, you will be using 8949 capital gains document that you will file along with your taxes, which puts all the information. And it's important to keep the audit trail.
Is 3,000 for an individual, or is that also for a corporation?
It's for individual.
Okay, so what about a corporation? Is there a limit how much they claim the loss?
I'll pass on the question to the CPA here. What's the limit for corporations to claim the losses? Capital loss.
So I have a question. Are wash sales allowed?
Yes, in crypto, there is no regulation on that. For now, they are allowed. So that's why tax companies keep sending like tax loss harvesting. Like December, you sell everything and buy back. That's what they say. Yeah. So audit trails. So it's important to keep the record of like what you're buying, what you're selling, what you're converting to, so that whenever an audit happens, you will be able to show it like what's the whole path. So that's about crypto taxes. It's not like pretty much into detail, but for basic understanding of it. So I know it's complicated. So even like 20 to 50 trades, you can do it manually. But if you have more than 50 trades, we have a software for that. So that's the platform we have built. It's like handles all the transactions. It does all the FIFO, it matches, and also matches your transfers between exchanges. Like if you are buying on Coinbase, sending it to Binance, the transfer is not a taxable event, so you don't have to pay tax for that. So the system identifies that and shows you only the gain or loss that you owe taxes on. So that's how it looks. So we provide LIFO. Last in, first out. Yeah, FIFO and LIFO. So we do FIFO, LIFO, and specific identification. And you can choose, but for LIFO, you need to tell, like, you need to be aware of like what you're doing, because if you are doing LIFO, you should have done LIFO in the past year also. Yeah. So if you can, yeah, then you can choose LIFO on the platform. Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So on LIFO, I can't talk as loud. So on LIFO, it's the burden of the proof that rests on the taxpayer to prove that you've notified the company that you want to elect LIFO and make sure that they took action on it. So if IRS comes back, it's on the taxpayer to say, hey, I sent this notification and they took this action. Yes, correct. Yep.
Okay, last question over here.
But, I mean, if you were doing FIFO or LIFO, you could at any time switch to specific lot identification because that's an extension, correct?
Yes, specific identification, you can do it if you're sure about it, yeah.
Okay.
You can definitely. So on our software, we provide like the documents generated for you. We do all the calculations, process, and provide documents. So form 8949, and we provide an export to TurboTax, so you can just download the CSV and upload it on TurboTax. That's simple. And if you are like a heavy trader, day trader, and you have thousands of transactions, you don't want to put like 300 pages of like 8949. So we provide an aggregated version of that too. And yep, that's what we do. 8949 documents, auditable CSV. So this CSV contains the complete trail of like what you have traded and everything. And yep.
Cool.
That's bear.tax.
Yeah, so one thing thank you so much for sponsoring and then also providing a great service here in Atlanta. So one thing I really like about the first time I met you, you're saying it's bear tax because we're bearish on taxes. I was like, cool, that's awesome. So between FIFO, LIFO, bear tax, and boating accidents, I think we're all covered, right? All right. All right. So this is the part of the presentation that isn't as polished. Set your expectations extremely low, and no one will be disappointed. So I've given a lot of 101 Bitcoin and blockchain talks, but the problem is I've been in the space for a while, and I kind of get in a bubble, and sometimes I forget what people don't know. So this will probably be a terrible presentation, but you can all smile and act like it's a great one. Yeah, thank you. One thing I'd like to ask is, let's just go ahead and do questions at the end, because I'm just going to run through this. And then let's do questions at the end, question answer. And then after that, I want to give opportunities for other people in this audience to come up and point out the things I missed or correct some of the things, maybe if they disagree, or just come up and also maybe ask more extended form questions. So I want this to be kind of like a community thing. I want to kind of blow your minds, if you've been in the space. I'm not really going to blow your minds, but kind of run through this, and then we'll do Q&A, and then we'll do anyone can come up. All right. So let me get my water ready ahead of time. All right. So Bitcoin, blockchain 101. All right, what is Bitcoin? So I'm kind of laying out what I'm going to be talking about. Why is it important? How to use, history, philosophy, technical details, and then Q&A, okay? Alrighty. All right, so we'll first just kind of hit blockchain, because everyone, if you're here for the blockchain, raise your hand. All right, so some people are here for the blockchain. So blockchain, we're gonna go over this technical diagram. This blue square right here, shaded a little bit darker here on the right side and a little bit lighter up here on top. That's a block. As you can see, there's 2 vertical chain links and then 1 horizontal chain link connecting these 2 right here. There's also one right here, a little bit of space on this one. That's the chain. This is a chain of blocks. Okay. So here we have another chain of blocks with more chain links and padlocks in between the blocks. Here we have something, and this looks like a blockchain that maybe had a little bit of identity crisis, started out orange, went to blue, struggling to figure out if it wants to go green or not. Here's another blockchain that you might see at a conference. Here's another blockchain. It kind of looks like the Eye of Mordor there with the fingerprint. This is a pretty standard blockchain. Here's another simple blockchain. You know, a little bit of detail. This is one of the first blockchains. Here's a blockchain. I suppose if you had enough of these, you could make a blockchain necklace. This is the Lego blockchain. Here is another type of blockchain. This is a modern rendition. This is someone trying to get his Bitcoins out of that blockchain. Here's some other versions of blockchains. As you can see, someone's deploying Hyperledger down there in the bottom left. And so that's kind of what blockchain is, in case you're confused. So when you hear someone saying, we're going to accomplish whatever using blockchain, just know it's a red flag, and it doesn't really mean anything. At this point, blockchain doesn't have any meaning, if you couldn't tell what I was trying to say. So it's a lot better and a lot easier to talk about blockchain when you talk about a specific implementation. So the one that we're going to be focusing on is Bitcoin. To really understand what a blockchain is, you have to know what Bitcoin is because it was the first one. And so when I say a Bitcoin and blockchain 101, we'll start with Bitcoin. And then from there, you can kind of decide where you want to invest your time to learn the space in totality. But I think it's a really good, I always recommend starting with Bitcoin whenever anyone's tackling this space because it just makes sense. So Bitcoin, to me, and this is, just remember, this is subjective. Keep your expectations low. You know, you're hearing this from me. Bitcoin is kind of 2 things. It's a network, and it's also a currency or a coin or an asset. So going back to the network is comprised pretty much of 2 things. You have nodes and miners, and the nodes are the ones that actually propagate transactions, run the software. They do pretty much what you think of in terms of the Bitcoin network, and then the miners are the ones that actually discover the blocks in the Bitcoin blockchain, okay? These miners are doing something called proof of work, and they are burning a lot of electricity. So the Bitcoin software, the main implementation is on GitHub, Bitcoin/Bitcoin. And if you want to be a first-class citizen in Bitcoin, and when I say first-class citizen, I mean just running like a node that is part of the network, you can. And that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to be part of something and not need permission from someone. It's right there. There's the code. There's other people who have written other implementations of the same protocol, so you don't have to run this code base, but as long as you run a compatible version of Bitcoin, then all the Bitcoin nodes can talk to each other. When I talk about miners, that's a completely different ballgame. That's a talk upon itself, and I don't really want to go into what miners are and those in detail, but just remember, these aren't necessarily just nodes. Maybe when Bitcoin first started, a node and a miner were kind of synonymous because your node would also mine, but now it's very almost industrialized, it's very commoditized, or not, whatever, however you want to describe it. it's like a business model now if you want to do mining. It's not just like a hobby kind of thing. So going back to the currency and kind of explaining what that is, I'm trying to approach this as if you know nothing, so I will probably talk about something you have no idea what I'm talking about. That's remember for Q&A at the end, if you can remember. So in terms of the currency, just high level kind of things, 21 million coins ever going to be mined, and there's some interesting stuff about that number. Every 10 minutes, on average, a block is found in the network, so those miners are doing computation to find blocks that then get propagated between all the nodes, and people running nodes could be anyone, could be you. Bitcoins can be divided up to 8 decimal places, so that's 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin. That's called a Satoshi. So roughly speaking, $10 of US dollar, 10 US dollars is about 113,000 Satoshis, just to give you an idea.
Just wanted to add, so sorry, you're doing great. 21 million times 8, that means there's 2.1 quadrillion units of Bitcoin. That's a very large number.
You too can be a Satoshi millionaire. It's not too late. It's very easy to get 1 million Satoshis. Okay. So I just want this to kind of resonate. I think this is, I think everyone who's kind of studied this has heard this phrase. It's digital gold. You can just think of Bitcoin, the most simple way to put it, digital gold. And that's not necessarily a good description and all-encompassing, but that's not necessarily too far from the truth. And it's definitely the easiest explanation. So this digital gold, so why is it important? You know, we already have normal gold, right? So why Bitcoin? Well, so Bitcoin is interesting for a couple different reasons. It may very well be a better money. You know, if you look at the properties of money, divisibility, portability, you know, stuff like that, there's some features of Bitcoin that are a lot more desirable, but kind of not even talking about those, I put out some other things. It's a finite digital, has scarcity without a trusted third party. Finite digital scarcity without a trusted third party. And that is pretty intense because this is, I think, in my opinion, the first project that has been able to accomplish this, okay? So if you think of another kind of digital item, asset, you know, whether you play video games or whatever, you're trusting the game developers, the server, the company to not just make a bunch of whatever asset. You know, to some extent, you're trusting the current banking model to not you know, send some people more money than they really have. I mean, it's a black box to us. We have no idea, really, if someone is screwing us. I mean, unless, you know, we don't get our money, then we know we're being screwed, but we have no idea really what's going on. It's definitely a black box to us. And then this is kind of inherent to the first part to some extent, but it's again, in my opinion, the first project to solve something called the double spin problem. So this is a double spin problem solution, and the double spin problem is if you have something digital, you can't send it to more than one person, okay? So that's a really hard problem to solve, especially on a network without some kind of trusted oracle or entity to determine who has what balance. So to kind of give an example of that, a physical apple, so if I hand you a physical apple, it's pretty understandable to say, hey, look, I no longer have this apple because it's in the physical space. Now you have that apple. I can't give that apple to Jared and Brandon and Monique, you know, because there's only one of them. There is no double spin problem conundrum, right? Unless like Star Trek, you know, like there's a replicator or something, and then we can make unlimited apples. But there's a, you know, you know, this apple is physical. Now, imagine like the picture of the apple, right? Like a digital version of the apple. And kudos to Jameson Lott for these 2 images because I just took them from his website. But a digital apple, you can send however many emails you want. You can send text messages with Apple. You can print this apple out on a sheet of paper, give them to more people. There's, I mean, whatever. I mean, I know it's digital. So the idea is you can, this doesn't have any significance. This, you can send it to multiple people, they can all have it. So that is pretty much the double spend problem. You can't just copy your Bitcoin and send them to multiple people. And that's because you have this decentralized network verifying everything, and it's pretty neat. And I want to really emphasize here, it's not only is it because of the idea that people are running nodes, but it's because the miners are burning all that electricity to find those blocks and verify transactions. So it's not just, hey, most of the network is on this kind of thing. Well, no, it's also the miners that are mining these blocks and putting in a lot of work to mine this blockchain. So I'm going to kind of skim over this, but this is that double spend problem is also considered to be associated with the Byzantine generals problem, and this kind of goes back into what I talked about. How do you know what the truth is with a little bit of is it possible to know the truth if you don't have like this center oracle of information? And the Byzantine generals problem was having an unreliable network and being able to know what the truth is of a network. Well, Bitcoin solves this because the proof of work, it's like, hey, look, I know if I see something with a lot of work associated to it, I can just guarantee you that's probably the truth. And that's pretty much how Bitcoin solves that issue. So if you're locked in a bunker, now I'm stealing Daniel Krawitz's analogy. If you're stuck in a bunker and you have no idea what's going on outside, but you can see this blockchain and it has a lot of work associated with it, well, you're like, well, that's probably the truth. Even if you're stuck in a bunker and you come out, you're like, well, that has a lot of work put to it. So there's a good chance that that's the truth. And this is a pretty interesting, more or less a counterintuitive idea, because who would have thought that it would be a good idea to quote unquote waste electricity, right? So, and I say quote unquote waste electricity because if you think about our current banking model, and if you use if you use US dollars somehow, some way, digitally, that's backed by some bank, even if you're using one of these, Cash App type things, there is some bank, and you can't necessarily make your own bank. There's a Federal Reserve, there is the US Treasury, there is the Bureau of Printing, Minting, Engraving. You have, people to defend this idea and to further ideas associated, because you pretty much have intertwinedness of government and money, and not only stopping counterfeit, but furthering the interest of that currency, essentially. And if you think about the cost of mining and the cost of everything I just showed you, it's not, Bitcoin's actually far cheaper. Kudos to BZ from Binance, who made a tweet that was similar to that recently. So the barriers to entry for Bitcoin are almost null compared to like if you wanted to run like your own bank, for instance, and compete with like the US dollar. So being a first-class citizen equivalent on the Bitcoin network is pretty crazy. And I hope you're excited about that, because this is happening in our lifetimes, and this is a paradigm shift. So again, these are just the inputs, right? You have nodes and miners and an internet connection, which isn't on this, but you have to have some kind of network for these things to communicate on. So Bitcoin, be your own bank. So that's the why this is kind of important. So going back to this, finite digital scarcity without a trusted third party, and what does this enable? And I also have this quote here: all power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So this is if you really believe this quote, then we need something like Bitcoin. We need something like this for humanity's sake. And I say that kind of like, hey, I'm not like Andreas Antonopoulos here, but this is, I think, what a lot of people have concluded in this space. So recap, what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is freedom. Bitcoin enables freedom, and this is why it's important. So that's a little bit of my spiel there. So let's talk about history. And also keep in mind, if you disagree with this, keep a mental note for later, because I would like to have a discussion for all of us. History. So here I have posted a white paper. A white paper is, you can just think of it like as a technical document that some projects will open up like, hey, I have an idea, I want to write a white paper. This could be before it's actually implemented. Bitcoin, the Bitcoin white paper was released, I want to say in sometime in 2008, but I don't know when. And the word blockchain actually did not exist in the original document of Bitcoin. It was actually man, I would love if someone could prove me wrong on this, but I want to say Hal Finney, after he read the white paper, described the ledger that was Bitcoin as a blockchain, 2 words with a space. And that was the first time blockchain had been mentioned publicly in the context of like crypto, whatever. And it was then found twice more in the initial code base under comments. Satoshi Nakamoto, the pseudonym or a group of people, I don't know if, as a recap, the creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, either a group of people or an individual, supposed to be anonymous. There might be someone here who has met Satoshi, but anonymous to most of us, put the word blockchain in as comments in the C++ code twice, and also space, so blockchain. This is some trivia for you. 10 years from now at a bar, I'm sure that'll come up. I want to mention 2 people that are mentioned in the white paper, Adam Back and Ralph Merkle. So Adam Back is actually there. He's very happy to take a picture of me. He was very happy to see me, I'm sure. Adam Back is kind of the inventor, idea, brainchild behind Hashcash, which is the idea of this proof of work kind of idea to essentially limit spam for mail. Ralph Merkle is pretty much the guy who doesn't get enough credit, but he invented like everything, like public cryptography, like public key cryptography, or one of the inventors of that, and Merkle trees. Well, at least I'm guessing based on his name. And yeah, public key cryptography. Yeah. So does anyone know who the guy in the picture is? Does anyone want to guess? If you can read his name badge. So that's Adam Beck, yeah. I think I said it earlier. Yeah. So another person I want to kind of give out in terms of history is Gavin Andreessen. This was one of the first guys to really go all in on Bitcoin in terms of like helping the community, developing. He made this thing called a Bitcoin faucet where he gave away 50 Bitcoin at a time to random people on the internet. This was in 2011, I think, or 2010. When did the faucet? When did the faucet happen? He had the 2011. Yeah. So I mean, he didn't keep it open for forever, but he kept it open for a while. Yeah, and he could really thank Gavin Andreessen for a lot of things in terms of spearheading development. And unfortunately, though, he's really no longer with the Bitcoin project because of drama. And that's a talk on its own. And then going all the way, skipping Charlie Shrim and going straight to 2013. This is Ross Ulbricht in 2013. That's when I was talking about earlier, double life sentence. And if you are passionate about the space and you wanted to sign the petition, freeross.org. Silk Road is pretty much why 2011 to 2013 why Bitcoin got popular. First main use case, you could go online and buy stuff with Bitcoin. Most of the things were illicit stuff. I think over like 90% of the purchases was like marijuana. But now the funny part is marijuana is almost like completely legal now. And it's like, it's whatever. Anyways, there's a lot of drama with this, and there's a lot of corruption. I think like the agents that like were going after him also went to prison because they were corrupt, and it's a whole big mess. Yeah, they stole Bitcoin and they tried to embezzle it. And anyways, I'm just saying, it's a big mess. If you do want to look into that, please do. Again, that's freeross.org. So some more history. So that line right there, that's 2013-14. Bitcoin goes over $1,000 for the first time. And that other green arrow, that's when blockchain lost all meaning, somewhere around that time. That's when it started. The price started going back up, and then you started seeing blockchain used in all kinds of obscure ways, not just the technology behind proof of work blockchains, but the technology behind your toaster and everything else. So how to Bitcoin? Okay, so to Bitcoin or not to Bitcoin? No, so to Bitcoin pretty much means to own Bitcoin and to use the Bitcoin, in my opinion. If you want to use Bitcoin, you have to own Bitcoin, and the how is you exchange usually fiat US dollars for Bitcoin in our case. So there's Bitcoin ATMs, like I mentioned, Bitcoin Depot. You have exchanges online, such as Kraken. You have websites to meet people, such as localbitcoins.com. And then you have other services. So, and then there's also, I don't really know how Cash App uses Bitcoin, but I think there's some kind of thing with, okay. And then there's also something like the Fold app, those kind of apps where you can get paid back for your purchases, but in Bitcoin. So something interesting, and they also let you purchase stuff with Bitcoin, and then you get paid, you get like cash back, you get sats back. So something interesting, all the pizza that we bought today was with Bitcoin through the Fold app, and we got sats back, and that was pretty cool. So we actually paid for the Domino's pizza with Lightning Network Bitcoin today. And that's the first time I've done that, so that was kind of cool. So, and it worked. Yeah. I think at TabConf was the first time. So pizza and Bitcoin have a history. It should have made the history somewhere, but the first official purchase was 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas, and it was Papa John's, not Domino's. But that for some reason missed my slide deck. But now you know. That's definitely going to be in trivia night at the bar. So make sure you get that. Yeah. So after you buy Bitcoin on one of these things, you want to be able to hold Bitcoin. What does that even mean? What does that look like? Well, usually what you're going to do is you're going to send someone a public address, okay? And this is going to look like one of the 3 options, most typically. Very, very few exceptions, actually. The first one is going to be the oldest running one. This public address, I think they started using this in like 2010 when they first started using pub addresses. Before it was just pub keys. But pay to script hash, that pretty much enables, you could call it complex logic on Bitcoin, the idea of complex conditions. You can almost think of this as Bitcoin's smart contract addresses. And now the SegWit addresses that are being used now, which also kind of encapsulate pay to script hash, I believe. Yeah, okay. So if you're using something that starts with BC1, the first 3 letters at that bottom one, you know you're using the most recent kind of address. The pay to script hash is going to start with a 3, and the legacy addresses start with a 1. Okay, that's how you know which one you're using. Okay, so if it doesn't look like any of these, then you're probably doing it wrong. But the good part is this should all be automated for you with whatever wallet you end up using. So if you download a wallet, right now you can download the BitPay wallet, the Edge wallet, the Samurai wallet, Samurai wallet. There's a bunch more every day. There's like 100. These wallets, what they're going to do is they're going to create a public and private. They're going to create sets of public and private keys for you. These public and private keys, the public key, the public address. Essentially, the public address is derived from this, but you create a private key which needs to be held private. This is what's going to give you the ability to send Bitcoin away from, however you receive it. You need to make sure you have the corresponding private key. And again, this is all automated for you within your wallet. I'm just kind of giving you some technical background. When you hear people say not your keys, not your Bitcoin, or not your keys, not your crypto, it's because if someone else has your private key, they can steal all your money. So if you hold on to your own private key, you have self-sovereignty. You're acting as your own bank essentially, but you also you take on all the risk. So if you have that private key on a phone, if you have that private key on a sheet of paper, and that sheet of paper burns, or your phone corrupts, or something, or you factory reset your phone, you don't have a backup, you just lost your Bitcoin, and that's all there is to it. So with great keys come great responsibility. I don't know what else to say. Something else that's interesting is this kind of gives a little bit of information on how your wallet will generate a bunch of different key pairs for you. So when I say key pair, that's going to be like a pub private key that go together. Just in case you didn't know, a private key will produce a public key, and a public address will then be derived from a public key. So sorry, a private key is what you're creating. From there, you derive a public key, and from there you derive a public address. Okay, and I'm not going to get into the technicals of how that works. You just need to trust me on that. So this is showing a method of producing a seed, and this is what most wallets will do. When you download them, you'll produce a seed, and from that seed, you'll then produce pretty much infinite amounts of public and private keys, key pairs. And the way that works, if someone wants to screenshot this and steal some Bitcoin, just kidding. Usually your wallets will say, hey, look, here's 12 words, or here's 24 words. Write them down because this is your seed to back up all your Bitcoin or all your cryptocurrency on this wallet, okay? So that's pretty much what you would be expected to see if you see that. There's also the idea of getting a hardware wallet, like Trezors or Ledgers or others. And the idea with these is instead of holding your private keys on the internet, like that phone to the right there, you would hold your keys offline, and then you would sign messages to prove that you own Bitcoin or to send Bitcoin offline, and then transfer them to the internet instead of having your private key on the internet, if that makes sense. And that gives you a little bit additional security. You can almost think of the security versus convenience. The most secure is going to be you create your own computer, you create your own chip, and you don't trust anybody, and you do this all from scratch. And then the more convenient approach is just use completely, custodial model where they actually hold your private key for you and you're completely hands off. So it's a lot more convenient, but a lot less, secure, because they could also get hacked. Questions at the end, if that's all right? Comments at the end, if that's all right? Can you just hold off? Okay, just hold it in your head, and then we'll hold it in your head, and we'll go. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, but people actually accept the scrap. So BitPay. So anywhere Visa is accepted, you pretty much can spend your Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever BitPay supports. Bitcoin Cash. I see you calling. So that kind of. Any merchant that integrates with BitPay, the end user can pretty much spend their Bitcoin. Also, I think not too many people are saying like, hey, I have these Bitcoins, no one accepts it. I think that was really popular like in 2013, but I feel like now I don't get as many people saying that, That used to be like, everyone used to say, hey, you have all these Bitcoins, but you can't spend them anywhere. But now it's like no one says that. So I've noticed kind of a shift there. And then also going back to the Fold app, I mean, I bought the pizza today through the Fold app via Lightning Network, so it was pretty cool. So getting into the technicals, and I want to try to run through this. Let me check. Let me do a quick time check. Okay. So I brought up the white paper again because this is, I guess you could call it the technical part. I do want to just read the abstract real quick, if you don't mind. And this is what Satoshi Nakamoto published. A purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. Digital signatures provide part of the solution, and digital signatures being, hey, I want to sign something with my private key. But the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is still required to prevent double spend. We propose a solution to the double spend problem using a peer-to-peer network. The network timestamps transactions by hashing them into an ongoing chain of hash-based proof of work, forming a record that cannot be changed without redoing the proof of work. And that's to go into what I said about the miners. The miners are really crucial to the idea of the security of the network. The longest chain not only serves as proof of sequence of the events witnessed, but proof that it came from the largest pool of CPU power. This is a bit dated because now no one's using CPUs, they're actually using things called ASIC miners. As long as the majority of CPU is controlled by nodes that are not cooperating to attack the network, they'll generate the longest chain and outpace the attackers. This is an interesting point because it benefits the people mining to be good actors because they get paid in Bitcoin. If they have a bunch of expensive equipment and they attack the network, then not only are they making Bitcoin worth less, but they're wasting their resources where they could be converting their resources into more value. So it's a kind of interesting game theory here for good actors on the network. The network itself requires minimal structure. Message or broadcast on best effort basis, and nodes can leave and rejoin the network at will, accepting the longest proof of work chain as proof of what happened while they were gone. And this is what I was saying. If you're in a bunker and you then emerge out of the bunker, you don't need to, you know whatever the longest chain is the truth, versus typically you would want to make sure you're on the network 24/7 to ensure that the history hasn't been changed throughout time. You want to be there when it happens. Otherwise, it's hearsay. But the good part about proof of work is it's not just hearsay. It's, hey, I can prove. Look at all these ditches they dug. Those ditches didn't just come from anywhere. I need to work on that analogy. But anyways, so the other part I want to talk about in terms of the technicals is something called the mempool. So when you send transactions to people, it's actually not instant. Remember how I said earlier blocks are every 10 minutes? Well, people can see that your transaction is coming, but it's actually not in the blockchain until it gets confirmed and via a miner. So you could almost think of these people waiting as in the mempool, and they're waiting for their block to be called so they can a miner to pick them up and be put in. These transactions in the mempool can be propagated to each other via the nodes, but it's ultimately a node that the miners connect to that the miner will find the transactions that they want to pick up. So you can think of miners as they're definitely connected to a node, but not every node is a miner. I hope that makes sense. So this mempool is, so blocks can only be a certain size on Bitcoin. So in other words, if a lot of people want to make transactions, it's all fun and games if there's not many people, but the lines can get really long. And if a lot of people want to transact on Bitcoin at the exact same time, you have to wait. And getting into that club is really fun, but its capacity is only about 3,500 transactions per block, depending on the type of transactions. And we've seen this happen before. 2017, especially, we saw the mempool get very, very filled up, and if depending on how much you want to pay in fees, you get expedited. So if you want to pay a lot, you get the VIP fast lane, and you get to skip the crowd, go right into the club. You get your transaction confirmed. But if you're a pleb like me, and you're paying like the lowest fee, then you're going to be like in the back of this line, and then people are even going to skip you, and you're just going to be like, this sucks. But that's kind of how Bitcoin works. If you have low priority transactions, you can do 1 Satoshi, per byte. It's Satoshi per byte, so depending on how big your transaction is, you've heard of like kilobytes and megabytes, so we're talking about like 180, 300 byte, transactions. You'll pay a certain Satoshi per byte. That's your fee to come in, and the lowest is about 1 Satoshi per byte. So this is kind of the idea of how Bitcoin works. Now, you might be wondering like, hey, what happens if the mempool gets really full? Well, there's been some people that disagree with this approach. So Bitcoin's approach is, keep the blockchain small and nimble because this is going to be forever, and we need to make sure, we don't bloat it, and if people want to pay for fees, then, that's how miners get incentivized long term, especially with a finite supply of Bitcoin. Some people like the idea more of markets decide how big the blocks are and how big the club should be. Or you could argue that it's markets, or some people might argue otherwise. Bitcoin Cash is probably the most notable fork of Bitcoin in 2017. And then there is another one that actually came from Bitcoin Cash in 2018. The reason I bring up these two projects is because they're the most notable. There's actually been, I don't know, like 20 or 30 or 40 like forks of Bitcoin. But these are the two most notable. And if you notice, the Bitcoin Cash symbol is slightly tilted to the left. BTC is slit to the right, and then BSV is just a dragon, so, whatever. All right. And yeah, the Bitcoin, we talked about this a lot at TabConf, so if you are interested in like the drama of forks, we'll probably do that again at TabConf, so. All right, so I'm gonna go over, we're still in the technical portion, so I'm just gonna run through this. So Genesis block, first block. Okay, every time you find a block, you get 50 Bitcoin. That's how Bitcoin started. So every time you find a block, 50 Bitcoin. That guy in the top is Satoshi Nakamoto, he has 100 Bitcoin. Okay, this guy just found a block, Dorian Nakamoto, he has 50 Bitcoin. This green guy, oh, he didn't win. Okay, whatever. So now it's like you don't know who's going to win. There's a lot of miners. It's like a lottery, depending on how many computers you have. That's like lottery tickets into like this prize of who gets the next Bitcoin. So your computers are churning. All right. So the Doge got the Bitcoin. So I want you to focus here on Big Bird right here. So Big Bird just got a transaction from the guy, the Dorian right there, and that is now in the mempool, okay? It doesn't get confirmed until the next block, and now the transaction is recorded considering the miner picked up that transaction. So then he would get not only 50 Bitcoin, but whatever fee was associated with that transaction, okay? And that goes to the Doge, obviously. Let's see, does Craig Wright get any? No, Craig Wright doesn't get any Bitcoin. Yeah, oh well. Maybe he can just take Satoshis later, I don't know. And this idea where if someone wants to now go back and change history, they would have to go back and compete with every single person building upon the tip of the chain, and they could be burning electricity on something that is potentially worthless. So the reason why Bitcoin works is because it's in your best interest to be a cooperative actor. That's at least the game theory at this time. Right now, no one's actually mining solo. They're mining in pools. This is for the most extent, not 100% true. And people are pulling their resources together saying, hey, look, if we all mine together, if we mine individually, we're not going to have reliable income, but if we all mine together, then we can split the income evenly amongst us, and that's what pools are. Okay, Satoshi disappeared, I think, like in 2011 or something. I don't know. Anyways, so he's gone. POW. And you might be wondering, like, what is a block? Well, a block is only 80 bytes, and 80 bytes is tiny. We're talking about bytes, not megabytes or kilobytes. We're talking about bytes. So this is kind of a breakdown. I'm actually going to skip this because I don't want to go too long. 21 million Bitcoin, there's something called halvings. So every time 210,000 blocks are found, the reward gets cut in half, okay? So remember how I was saying that it's 50 Bitcoin for every block? Well, after 210,000 blocks, then it goes to 25. And after we hit 420,000 blocks, then it goes to 12 and a half. And then et cetera, et cetera.
So that is equivalent to roughly 4 years.
Yeah. Roughly 4 years. Okay. Comments at the end, please. If you look at the supply graph, so that first between 2009, 2013, this is like a trajectory of how many Bitcoin are released. You see it kind of is like a parabola. It kind of tops off at 21 million. So it's because the supply keeps getting halved and halved and halved. Okay. Right now we're at, does anyone know? I think I told you all. I meant like what's the block reward? 12 and a half. Okay. So after the next halving, which is coming up, then it'd be 6.25. Okay, so we have 10-minute block times. So the way that works, it's kind of interesting. There's a difficulty readjustment. So depending on how fast the blocks are actually being found, every 2016 blocks, well, it's really 2015, but we'll just say 2016 for the sake, there's a difficulty calculation period. So if a bunch of people start mining and the hash rate goes up, the collective hash rate, then it will get, the problems that have to be solved will get harder, okay? And that's a really simplified explanation of how that works, okay? And essentially it's going to be, it's auto-adjusting. So if it starts taking longer to find blocks on average, then it will get easier. And that's built into the protocol. You don't need like a Federal Reserve monetary policy to tell you that. This is just built into the protocol. So 10-minute blocks, that's 6 per hour. So it's about 144 blocks a day, okay? And if you do that times 14 or 2 weeks, that's 2016 blocks per 2 weeks. And there's a off by one bug, it's actually 2015. All right, we're almost done. So we have a blockchain here, and we're going to talk about now what happens when you have a bad actor. What happens when you have someone like Alice, the evil Alice, try to scam Bob, okay? So Alice pays Bob for some green tea because she likes drinking green tea. And that transaction is in mempool, boom, gets recorded into the blockchain. But what Bob doesn't know is Alice owns a ton of miners, and she wants to now steal back the Bitcoin that she just gave to Bob. So she's going to start a fork of the chain. Would you call this a chain split? Whatever. Whatever. She's 51% attacking the Bitcoin blockchain. And everyone's mining this normal chain, but what they don't know is Alice has an extreme amount of miners, and boom, she actually competes and overrides the main chain where that transaction is recorded. And now everyone starts mining off the tip of that her chain, okay? And thus making this transaction never really happening. So that transaction's on the chain of truth. That transaction actually, she never spent those Bitcoin. So this would be her double spending these Bitcoin. Yeah, fork, yeah. Orphan, yeah, this is an orphan chain, yes. So that's how a 51% attack happens. You just witnessed one, so congratulations. Not too many people have witnessed that. All right, so public addresses. So this is another kind of technical tidbit. Public addresses don't hold Bitcoin. UTXOs, unspent transactions outputs, do. And we're going to break down a little bit what this means. So if you think about a public address and you receiving Bitcoin to that public address, you might say, well, my public address holds this much Bitcoin. And to be honest, you're right. The technicality is you're wrong. But the reason being is because not every single public address is actually associated with the Bitcoins, with potential UTXOs for that Bitcoin address. So an example I like to bring up is Peter Todd created a pay-to-script hash address or a pay-to-script hash address. The UTXOs were only redeemable if you found a SHA-1 collision. Two pieces of data that equal the same SHA-1 hash. So this did not take a private key. So your private key, there was no private key for this UTXO is what I'm trying to say. So even though you might think like, hey, this Bitcoin is for this address, well, the private key for that address couldn't unlock these Bitcoins. So they're kind of not always the same thing. Now, 99% of the time, your Bitcoin for a public address are unlockable by a private key, but that's not always the case is what I'm trying to say. So if you didn't follow that, that's okay. That's Twin Peaks talk later after a couple of beers. You can also, one thing I really like to talk about in terms of UTXOs is you can think of them as like dollar bills. So UTXOs might all be part of the same wallet or the same address, but you have different so let's say one person pays you $100, one person pays you $50, one person pays you $20. Well, each one of those are different UTXOs. So if you want to pay someone, let's say $70, you need to burn 2 of these UTXOs. You need to take one $50 UTXO and one $20 UTXO, if that makes sense, and then pay someone $70. At that point, you're burning those 2 UTXOs and you're making a brand new $70 bill, okay? So, or $70.25 UTXO. So, depending on how many UTXOs you use in a transaction, the more you pay in fees. So if you accept a bunch of $1 payments and the fees are really high, you're screwed because you have a bunch of $1 bills, but that's your transaction. Let's say you want to spend $100, you're going to need to use 100 $1 bills, right? And your transaction is going to be huge on the blockchain because every single one of these UTXOs takes up space in the transaction. Right? So your fee might be more than what you're trying to send potentially, and that's kind of a scary thing. So ideally speaking, you want larger UTXOs. You don't want a crazy amount of them. There's obviously some cases where you want some kind of privacy, and there's some kind of situations where you do want some more UTXOs, but it's just something to keep in mind. There is some kind of balance there. If that doesn't make sense, again, Twin Peaks talk after a couple beers. And then this is my last slide animation. We're going to talk about what Bitcoin has done. So we talked about kind of Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV. After the mempool gets full, their solutions are more or less raising the block size limit, so letting more people into the club. Bitcoin has decided to take the firm approach of the club is this size, too bad. And you know, if we want to, you know, have more participants, that needs to be done in different ways, either through efficiency or off-chain. So, and you know, good for Bitcoin for holding true to you know what they want. So let me kind of show you what a Lightning Network transaction kind of looks like. So if you're not technical, this probably won't make sense. So, and I want to skim over this. So Alice opens a 2 of 2 multi-sig with Bob. But first she makes a refund transaction for 2 weeks in case Bob becomes uncooperative. And that's just sometime in the future, potentially. So her first payment, so let's say she opens up a 2 of 2 with Bob for 0.5 Bitcoin. So her first transaction to Bob says, hey, I want to update the state of this multi-sig transaction to 0.08. So that's her first payment to Bob. So Bob's like, okay, cool. I had 0, now I have 0.08. I like this. I want to hold on to this. And then Alice is like, well, I want to pay you again. So I'm going to up what I owe you. So instead of 0.08, I want to up it to 0.4. So this would essentially be 0.32 of a payment because it's that much more. And Bob's like, yeah, that's cool. You owe me 0.32, so you now owe me 0.4. And then he's going to discard his old one and then he's just going to take the new one. So now that's the current state of the chain between them. And then she's going to say, hey, Bob, here you go. I want to, you get 0.05 and I get 0.45. And Bob's like, no, because that's less money. So I'm not going to hold on to that one. So, you know, whatever. If you don't like it, then, you know, close the channel. And now Bob is pretty much guaranteed that 0.4 Bitcoin. So that's how multiple transactions happened off chain, but in a trustless way per se. And if that didn't make sense, don't worry, no one understood that. All right. And bidirectional, and potentially Bob could send them back. So then instead of 0.4, Bob could then update the chain to say, hey, look, it's 0.38, and I want to pay you 0.2, in which Alice would have 0.12. So, all right. So we'll do quick Q&A and then comments, and people can come up. So thank you. Yeah, do Q&A first and then comments, yeah.
Back on
and then you can come up if you want. Yeah.
Back on the slide about the Bitcoin bills. What did you call those again?
Right here?
Yeah, what did you call those?
UTXOs, unspent transaction output. Sorry, I don't even think I said that.
It's okay.
Yeah.
When you talked about them, and so I'm trying to send someone $70, so I give them a 50 and a 20, and those two burn and create a 70.
Yep.
When those start stacking up, then you get giant bills that are hard to use. How do they?
So that's a really good point. So the question was, hey, when you get a UTXO that's very large, like let's say you get like $1,000 UTXO, I don't, how do you use this? Because not one person is going to accept $1,000. Well, what you do is when you spend that $1,000, instead of creating just one UTXO, you'd actually create 2 UTXOs. So one UTXO would then go in, and 2 UTXOs would come out. You would have the one that goes to the person. So let's say you have a $1,000 UTXO, and you send it to someone for, let's say you only want to spend like $50. So you'd send them $50, and then you would have a refund transaction of $950. So it'd be a
change
refund
transaction.
It'd be your change. Yeah.
Yeah, so if that's a really large amount and you haven't put enough as a fee into the mempool, you could be sitting for hours and hours going, oh my God, I don't have my Bitcoin.
Days.
Yeah, it's awful, right? And you try to make another transaction like insufficient funds, and it really sucks because you actually do have it, but it just hasn't come back to you from the mempool.
Yeah.
So that's it's an important awareness to have.
Yeah. So some of the wallets support something called replace by fee. Some other ones support child pays for parent. These are ways of saying, hey, look, if I at first put a fee that's way too low and I need to now prioritize this, then you can actually say, hey, look, mempool, I'm going to pay more, and then that would get replaced. Not every wallet actually supports that, and I would say the ones that do are great, but the ones that don't, then you have to be technically savvy to like, okay, now I need to export this key onto a wallet that does support it, and
Any other questions?
Okay, cool, thank you. If anyone wants to come up and talk or say something, this is your chance. Otherwise, we can break. I just kind of want to open it up for anyone to chime in as well.
What about Liquid?
So you asked about Liquid. Liquid is Adam Back's, or I say Adam Back. It's Blockstream's product, and it's a sidechain. So I don't know what else you want me to say about it. So which slide was it?
It was the one that had the hard wallet, like the super secure.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So being super careful for stuff like that, you might be doing a quick Google to go, how can I do a cold storage wallet? And you Google that, and it pops up like 5 choices, and you're like, oh, that one looks nice. And it looks really pretty like that slide that you saw here, and you're like, well, Michael showed that picture. It must be safe. And so you set up that process, and you create what you think is a cold storage wallet. Don't actually transfer your full whatever number of Bitcoin into it. Take a really tiny amount, like 0.0001 Bitcoin, maybe even less than that, depending on how much you have, and put it on that cold storage wallet and see how it reacts, okay? Do it, print it, and then go back and try to reactivate it. See if your wallet still activates and you have access to those Bitcoin and you can spend them. If you can't, do not put your 2.9 or 15.7 or 50.2 or whatever number of Bitcoin you're trying to put into cold storage. Do not trust online cold storage wallets that look really pretty. No. They allow you to, quote, set it up online. I'm just saying, you can find online these options to help you get cold storage that will screw you, and you will not ever recover your Bitcoin. Thank you. So when I saw that picture, and I've seen that before online, when I was doing research to showcase how to do this safely, it's scary. So I wanted to just go, hello, people that haven't got the background and experience that some people here have. That pretty picture is not indicative of a safe way to store your Bitcoin. Anyway, I just wanted this to be part of your education, so it wasn't just glazed over.
Any Bitcoin you lose based on this presentation, I'm not responsible. Just know that if anyone asks you for Bitcoin, it's a scam.
100%. If I ask you for Bitcoin, it's a scam.
And yeah,
That's happened before.
Yeah, people impersonate, people spoof, and the other thing is like Linda was saying, you know, people try to scam you into thinking something is secure when it isn't. You'll think a hardware wallet is secure when it isn't. But ultimately speaking, there's trade-offs for pretty much every setup. Going into the nitty-gritty of each one of these kind of categories can take quite a bit of time, but becoming a real power user of Bitcoin takes time and effort. And I would say find people that you actually trust to talk about this stuff with. For instance, I know like the Socratic group is very almost like truth seekers. In this case, there's a bunch of Bitcoin Socratic groups coming up. You know, people like you see in this front row area over here that are helping run Tab. You know, I would say people, you know, come here to ask questions. The people online might be trying to scam you. So not to say people here won't be trying to scam you. Don't trust anyone. Don't trust me. But, you know, you have to, I don't know, everyone become a coder and very, very technical. Otherwise, you don't know what's the truth, right? So anyone else want to chime in, say anything? Okay, so the question was, why does Bitcoin go up in value? So I think it really goes back to kind of the ideology and of first what it is. You know, what is it for? Does it enable anything that normal U.S. payments don't? And the answer is yes, it does. It's the permissionless payments. It's the ones that you don't want to get permission to do. First and foremost, that's something that it has an edge on in terms of payments. So if you ever want to do something where if your jurisdiction it's considered illegal, like for instance, we'll go with a PG example. If you're in some kind of Middle Eastern country and Bibles are illegal and you want to buy a Bible, well, you can't use traditional forms of payments. You would have to use something like Bitcoin.
May I give an alternate answer?
Huh?
May I give an alternate answer?
Are you going to say drugs?
Supply and demand.
Well, so, yeah. I was going to get to that. So my first one is the payments. The second one is the fundamentals of the finite supply being finite. The supply is set and has a very predictable rate of issuance and inflation. So given that, when demand rises, you will see price rise because the supply is, like I said, pretty predictable and pretty static. So when demand greatly increases, whether it's from people saying, hey, look, this is going to go up in value in the future, or hey, I need this because this is something where this is inflating a lot less than my currency in Venezuela or, you know, Argentina, you know, then it actually becomes a store of value for those types of people.
I would say yes. Supply is constant and it's fixed, so demand is really the only variable in the price. Well, what I'm saying is it's known in advance. So supply is known. It's a known quantity. Demand is what drives price.
Does anyone else want to say anything or have another question? No? Did you want to, Mike? Or? Sure, I can yell. Yeah, can you hand?
Here's my comment on the demand for Bitcoin. It's all in people's minds. And I think there's kind of a war going on. There are people who don't want Bitcoin to have value in people's minds. So it's a psychological war, really. It has no other value. If everybody today says, I don't care about Bitcoin anymore, it's gone. It's not like gold. You can't use it for anything else. It's not backed by any governments like our fiat currency is, which, you know, is a lot of people here know the questionality of that. So that's my one comment. meetings like this and the wider community, if people in the world keep increasing their desire for Bitcoin, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it becomes something that can be used. But if the people who are going against Bitcoin manage to discredit it, then where are we? We're right back where we are with fiat currency, and people can inflate it or...
Just also always know that when the price of Bitcoin is going down...
What? Yeah, that is why there's a demand, because we just like, I don't know if he's still here, but Hector was here a minute ago, and he's sending money to his mother.
Remittance, yeah.
In South America.
Yeah.
But that's just to maintain the integrity, right? That's like if you dig a ditch in your backyard, it's not the same as if you dig one for someone else. I mean, unless someone values that ditch, they're not going to pay you to dig it.
Hey, Brett, did you want to mic?
All right. Went on too long with that, but I don't believe it's a sure win in the long run for Bitcoin unless enough people change their minds, well, in cryptocurrency in general. Unless enough people start to value it, it's not going to overcome the resistance from government and other people, so other bad forces.
You made me think of something when you guys were kind of touching on demand, and specifically demand. And over the last few years, like, I get asked a lot, the question, basically what you said of like, well, what can crypto do that US dollar can't do? And I was like, well, you're kind of asking the wrong question. It took me a while, like, thinking about that, and it's more like what you alluded to is like, what can crypto not do? Or what can you not do with crypto that you can do with the US dollar? And it's like what you're saying. It's like censorship, confiscation without your desire. Like, you're not freely giving permission for someone to take something from you. You have custody of it. You have ownership of it. And that, like that slide you had with the freedom, I mean, that's absolutely what I said is freedom money. This is freedom money. And so, like, kind of to his point, I mean, I can totally see that point too, that there could be a time where the majority of people just disavow Bitcoin or crypto or anything like that, but there's still going to be groups of people like me who are still going to use it because the idea is out there now, and I would still use it over banks because I could tell you guys some horror stories about how I've been treated with the US dollar. Try to go get $100,000 in cash out of the bank. Watch the inquisition that happens.
Oh, I did that earlier today. I needed to buy a yacht or something. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's leave the rest of the discussion. It looks like we're kind of done. Thank you for everyone who chimed in. Seriously, thank you. Let's continue the conversation at Twin Peaks second floor. So I'll ask you all to pick up the stuff around you and to throw it away. And I'll see you at Twin Peaks second floor. Thank you so much.